So I got my pilot's license. Then my doctor put me on medication for my diabetes. Then I went aboard a plane. Now, if you're sitting there thinking, wait, can you do that? The answer is yes, but it's complicated. And the thing the FAA cares about isn't really the diabetes. Diet-controlled diabetes, they're mostly fine with that. But the moment you start taking pills or insulin, the paperwork gets a lot more interesting. There's a whole story behind my specific paperwork. I covered it in a previous video if you want the full context. Short version, I spent over a year grounded. I went through the special issuance process and I got my medical back. Now I'm up for renewal, and this time I have a choice to make. AASI, continuing the process I started with the special issuance last year, or BasicMed, a process a lot of pilots still don't know much about, including me for a while. This video is about that decision, what each option actually is, what I'd be giving up with each one, and why I landed where I did. Let's go through the options. AASI, or AME-assisted special issuance. This is the process the FAA puts you on when you have a condition like type 2 diabetes, which is controlled with medication. Your AME, Aviation Medical Examiner, coordinates with the FAA on your behalf. You'll need documentation provided by your treating physicians every year, or as often as is required by the conditions of your special issuance. Your AME will review the documentation and do your examination. And if everything looks good, they'll issue your medical right there. All the paperwork still goes off to the FAA though for further review. But once you get your medical, you're approved. You can fly. It's the traditional medical process, but it's a bit more involved. But it gives you a full FAA medical. BasicMed is different. It came about in 2017 as a simpler alternative to the full FAA medical. Instead of going through an AME, you just go to your regular doctor. They complete a checklist and you take an online course. If your doctor signs you off, you're good to fly. There are some limitations, certain aircraft, certain altitudes, and private pilot privileges only. But for lots of recreational pilots, that covers what they need. Here's where it gets specific to my situation. Last year, BasicMed wasn't an option. I was starting medication for diabetes. That disqualifies you straight away. I had to get a special issuance in order to keep flying at all. That was the only path forward. Now that I'm through that initial special issuance and into renewal, BasicMed is actually on the table. So I had to think about it properly this time. So which one did I pick? And more importantly, why? That comes down to one question I think every pilot in this situation needs to ask themselves. Before we get into that, there's one other option which comes up in these types of conversations. Sports pilot. No FAA medical at all. Just fly with your driver's license. But my Musketeer doesn't qualify. Sports pilot has speed limitations which my Musketeer doesn't quite meet. And even if it did, I want to fly at night. I want to keep the option open to do instrument rating later on. Sports pilot doesn't cover any of those unless you have BasicMed or a regular medical. So sports pilot is off the table. Back to AASI and BasicMed. For BasicMed, my regular doctor is familiar with the process. Not because they specialize in aviation medicine, they don't. But the process is similar to what they use for the commercial driver's license. And I'd already talked to them about it, and they were on board with the idea. And for what it's worth, I've done BasicMed before, although with a previous doctor. So this option wasn't completely foreign to me. So why AASI over BasicMed? Privileges. That's really what it came down to. BasicMed gets you roughly the equivalent of a third-class medical. For flying around here, it's fine. But I'd genuinely like to fly to Canada at some point. And if you want to fly internationally, you need a regular medical. Other countries don't recognize BasicMed. And that's really what tipped it for me. I'm not ruling BasicMed out forever. I've had it in the past. And if this renewal process gets burdensome year after year, it's a legitimate fallback. But right now, AASI keeps more doors open, and that matters to me. So here's where I landed. AASI, for now. If you're trying to figure out which way to go on us, start with one question. Where do you actually want to fly? Strictly local? Staying domestic? Day VFR only? Night flying? Instrument flying? high altitude, above 10,000 feet. These are all things that can lead into the decision on which one you go for. Day VFR, sports pilot. If you want to stay domestic but fly at night, or in IFR, BasicMed may be all you need. If you want to fly international or just keep your options open, then AASI is probably worth the extra process. Either way, knowing the difference before you sit in front of your AME, that's the important part. The next video is the actual renewal, the process I went through, the paperwork, the AME visit, the FAS submission, all of it. I'll document it as it goes, so you'll see how it actually plays out, not just how it's supposed to. If you're dealing with something similar, drop a comment. I'm generally curious in knowing how other people are navigating this. It's one of those decisions where there's no obviously right answer, only the right answer for your situation. I'll be back when I have a result. Subscribe if you want to see how this actually goes, because I don't know yet either.